It's like finishing a book, kind of. Not like... It's like when you're done working on a novel and you know that it doesn't need you anymore, aside from the years and years and years of editing, apparently. But it's like when you close the book and your adventures are over and you know they're over, but you'll probably be back for more. And that's what the feeling is like. Hi. I don't even know how to start these, but I feel like every video, I just don't know how I should be starting it, and I should be figuring out a way. But right now, it's just an awkward hello. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick, also known as Thick, and I wanted to talk about something... common alias. I wanted to talk about something that I've been doing for the last about 2 months, and it was Tim Clare's Couch to 80K Writing Bootcamp. If you're an author or a writer of any kind, or you maybe would like to try getting started as an author or, just a writer of any kind, I highly recommend this bootcamp. One, it's completely free, and I'll link it in the description down below, and I very much urge you to try it. It's a podcast. It's about 20 minutes every day, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. And he talks about some writing exercises or some stories or different ways to problem solve or different problems that you're going to run into, like blocks, and how to try to beat them. And then you get about 10 minutes of writing every day for the specific theme that he's set up. And every week has a theme. So like the first week is your introductory sort of week, and you're making lists. The second week is you're getting the hang of writing without editing yourself. And that's pretty, I can't tell you that I remember what the theme of every week is, because it's an 8-week program. And so since I just finished the 8th week, I can't tell you that I remember what week was everything. But, yeah, see more soft. Anyways, I wanted to share some of my thoughts on it and to direct as many people as I can to it. First, I want to say, if you thought about writing, but you weren't sure where to start, or you're a writer, but you're not really doing anything extra outside of maybe writing your story, if you're even doing that, I highly recommend doing this, because it will teach you some coping mechanisms for when you're stuck. It'll kind of help you get into a better habit, because it's 6 days a week for 8 weeks, and I don't know about you, but I don't normally write that much, or my habits were out of whack, and it's helped me set more of a habit of finding at least 10 to 20 minutes every day to make sure I write something down, even if it's not necessarily what I wanted to write down. It's encouraging, it's helpful, and for me, it has me seeking more ways to experiment and more ways to learn, even though I'm not in a formal education anymore. So some things I wanted to share. I remember the first day is coming up with a list of names. I'm not going to spoil what all of the days are for you, because I think the surprise of it all helps to create magic when you're working on stuff. And magic is just the term for creativity in this sense. But the first day always pops open on my page when I went to work on this stuff. And it was just making up as many names as you possibly can. And I've got stuff like Naughty Lobster, Carpet O'Connell, Brawly Temper, Jane Nodding File, Perfectly Ambassador, Sunday Borealis, Rover Bayfield, Captain Pearl Caster, Angler and Bonifiend, Ruby Sky, R. Martini, Carlos Watanabe, Crash Blue Tiger. I obviously, Fella Deerington. I clearly like the Black Donahue. I clearly like the kind of different names. There's Dare Thomas. I got one in here that was Slick Bastard, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a perfect name. Alabaster Shade. Ugh. So just come up with whatever. You are probably listening to these and going, this is so stupid. Why are these names so stupid? Why are you letting yourself do this? But you know, it's just fun. It's just fun. And then I said week 2 is about just letting yourself write without stopping yourself. And I wanted to share a little thing from week 2, day 1, that I wrote during my time spent. And it's just a little short story, not finished, but I liked the idea behind it. Yeah, so let me read you this little blurb here. People can be really painful. They want to be in control. They want their thoughts in your head, their eyes in your eyes, their heart in your heart, their mind in your mind. It doesn't matter what you think, what you see, what you feel. It doesn't matter what you've experienced, what you know, what you think about any specific thing. It's all a matter of whether you see things the way they do. And if your brain isn't one, then by damn it, they're going to make your brain into one. I've seen people take a knife to an old man's head and cut him ear to ear, right straight across. They peel back the skin, rip out the little hair he may or may not have had, and then crack the skull. The first time I saw it, they used a knife to crack the skull, placing the edge of the blade against the exposed bone and smacking it in like an ice pick. It didn't work well. All that had happened was a slit in the top of his head like a coin slot. So they pushed their knife away. The friend laughed at him. It's dull now. Shut up, said the guy who once had a knife. He picked up the old man's head in his hand and slammed it into the concrete. He dragged the man into the road and laid him out so the head was closer to the curb. So there was the concrete risen higher than any other part, and it was easier to ram his head into it. Every strike got harder. Red guts and loosened brain matter sprayed across. Red guts and loosening brain matter sprayed first out of the coin hole slit until the bone hat actually cracked and made the old man's brain completely vulnerable. The guy put his hands in the skull and ripped out the brain. A pair of old eyes connected to the brain via a long cord wouldn't let the brain leave the head completely. Not yet, at least. The guy tugged and placed a foot on the man's back and tugged until the brain came out. One of the eyes snapped off, and the other hung, swinging in the brain that was freed from the skull. Your head is mine now. Watch. Watch me, don't ya? The man rubbed his thumbs over the spiral design of the brain. I doubt he could name which part of the brain he was touching. He lifted the brain and brought it to touch his forehead, just a momentary kiss of the front end of the brain to the front end of his brain. Then he pulled it back. See? You get it now. He left a red smear over his eyebrows. He pressed it to his forehead again, pressing it harder this time. The soft material flattened against his skull, and he had blood going down his face, washing down his eyes, making him close them. He squeezed the brain in his fingers, and it fell apart in chunks. He rammed it into his head and squeezed it and squeezed it and squeezed it until there was little to nothing left in his hands but a little gray matter and mostly blood. You get it, don't you? You get what I was saying. You get everything. My brain is in your brain, is in my brain, is in your brain. And you can't have two brains because no one has two brains. You think you see it, right? Well, you don't. You see, when we were kids, we had a little blue bike. It was a tricycle, right? Yeah. Yeah, you would know that because that's what we had. It had a busted wheel and we didn't drive it. Remember how it got busted? It got busted because Brother George's dad's truck and dented the tire and the back of Dad's truck. What's the back of Dad's truck called? The thing. The big metal thing. The big steel thing. It's silvery or chromy or what color is it even? The man turned to his friend who was picking up pieces of brain matter from the street and mashing it between his fingers. Blood trickled down the man's fingers and into his wrists, staining the edges of his shirt, leaving lines of red all the way down to his elbows. Bumper? A bumper. That sounds dumb. Bumper sounds like a dumb name. What if it was called something else? What if it was like the back end? What if it was like... And that's where it ends. Because that's all that I could get in the 10 minutes. And there's some awkwardness in there because this has not been edited. This was just as it was coming out at the time that I did this. And not every day was great. There were days that I really, really struggled. There were days that was just like... I don't want to do this. Here we go. But there are also ideas that came out that I'm like, I want to keep that, or I like that. And the thing that I think was most helpful was doing the free write and learning more about how to do a free write. Training myself to get ready to just do a free write. And now as I'm getting to work, so you don't write a novel in the course of these 8 weeks. That's not what this is about. So this isn't like a NaNoWriMo type thing where it's write 50,000 words in 30 days. This is training you to problem solve and to let yourself write and to let yourself develop and to reach into different facets of your head in order to complete something. And then by the last week, he has you working on a novel or towards a novel that once you finish the program, hopefully you'll continue working on that novel, or you'll start figuring out ideas for what you want to do. And this last week has been particularly hard for me because I'm not sure where I want to go with this novel that I'm trying to write or rewrite, because I'm taking it out of, it was in a first draft and the draft is a mess. And so I'm trying to reorganize the draft, and I don't know what parts of it I want to keep and what parts of it I don't want to keep and what I want to completely redo. So I don't even know if I'm going to keep anything that I've written over this last week. But in doing this program, I have more trained myself when I'm sitting down to write, that if I start questioning, oh no, that's terrible, oh no, don't do that, I'm in the creative process. And you cannot create and you can't move forward if you're questioning everything you put down. So there's not a problem. I don't know about you guys, but for me, there's always been this problem of it needs to be better when it comes out the first time. It's like I'm afraid that somebody is already going to read it when it comes out the first time or even the second time, and it's just terrible, and it has to be good. And one of the things that I've been doing now since I've done this course is reminding myself it's okay, just let it run, just let whatever comes out come out, and then fix it later. Just keep moving the scene forward. And that's something I was doing before. I've had a number of times, there's been a number of times where I've had to do that with previous projects, but it usually takes me longer to get there and I drag my feet a lot more rather than just letting it roll. And it's really a helpful thing to learn, to just let it roll. I've also had more problems doing free writes for a while because I would get like a sentence or two, or I would get my prompt and I would be like, I don't know what to do, or I would be resistant to sitting down and typing. So one of the things that you do need to know before you sit down to do this program is when you hit the podcast, commit to doing it. Don't just listen to it. Don't pretend that you're going to do the exercises. If you turn it on, do the exercises. And even if you don't know what you're going to write, let yourself just be crazy. Let yourself just write the words again and again and again and again until something else comes out. Because I can tell you for sure, if you don't know what you're going to write at the beginning of 10 minutes and you set a clock and you say, I'm going to just type, I don't know until the end, well, you're going to get tired of writing, I don't know, and your brain is going to think of something else for you to type out. You will come up with something, but you have to give yourself the freedom to be messy. And I think a lot of authors, myself included, have a hard time allowing ourselves to be messy. We forget that we are artists. It's funny, I went to a magic show yesterday, and the magician up front asked for if there were any artists in the audience, and I raised my hand, and he asked what kind of artist I was, and I said I was an author, and he was genuinely surprised. And later I was talking to the people I was with and about the whole thing, and people ask for artists. I don't think people normally think of authors in the same boat as painters or sketch artists or any other sort of visual artist. And I don't think authors often think of themselves in the same way either. So you see, a comic artist or a visual artist of any kind will take time to just practice sketches, will do exercises and warm-ups all the time, like daily or, regularly at least, so they can practice, so they can mess around, so they can have stuff to throw away and then get back to the main project. And a lot of authors are resistant and think that everything that they sit down to do has to be for this master work, and that's not true. A lot of authors kind of let it go by the wayside that you should do some kind of warm-up exercise, be it starting a clock and writing it down a list, starting a clock and just free writing, starting a clock and having a prompt and just going at it so that your brain can exercise before you get to the work. They're all helpful things that I know as an author, for me, I've forgotten to do them. And so it's gotten progressively harder for me to just let it go. So in closing, I'm going to give you one more segment of something that I wrote during this event because I find it particularly entertaining. This was also written in week 2. Because marketplaces are definitely popular. I go to one every day. I go every day because I sell my stuff there too. What do I sell? Is it locally made? I guess you could say it is. I sell whatever I can find. Sometimes it's a shirt in a garbage can. Sometimes it's a skirt in a tree. You know, I've actually had a lot of luck finding clothing in trees and bushes, especially outside of apartments and residential places where a lot of people live. Residential compounds. That's what they're called, yeah? I find a lot of clothing in trees and bushes and ledges and whatever they're called. What kind of plants do you think they put near residential compounds that make them grow clothing? It might make more sense to say the clothing isn't growing, but it's someone who doesn't want it anymore. In the residential compounds, you can sometimes hear howling from down the streets, and when you hear the howling, it's usually in the morning or the afternoon. It's not normally at night, and then following the howling, you'll find the clothing growing on the trees, like they've just been watered by the yowling creatures. This is what I tell people when they ask where I found the clothing I'm selling. You don't think people actually want to buy clothing that was tossed out of the house because a couple was fighting because he was cheating or she was cheating or they were both cheating. And it just came out after she burnt the eggs again or he caught the house on fire with his vape. Somehow. No one knows how you catch a house on fire with a vape. Some people say if you suck on it too hard, suck it like a dick, it'll explode, catch fire. I think people just want to make vaping people look stupid by making them suck on it harder or suck on it more daintily because they gotta have that hit, but they don't want to explode. Or they're suicidal and they do want to explode, so they suck on it really, really hard. Or they're on the tram and they're terrible people and they want to hurt a lot of people, even at their own expense. So they get a vape and they suck on it really, really hard until their faces turn red and their cheeks are all kind of sagging, but then they realize the thing isn't going to explode and no one is going to get hurt. And actually, they were huffing at that thing so hard that a bunch of people got out their phones and took videos of them huffing really, really hard on the vape thing. And then like a week later, you're showing up on a bunch of websites with porno music playing in the background while you blow on that vape like it's the last day of your life. And at the time, you did think that it was the last day of your life, to be fair. So then you really, really consider that you want to die more than when you were on the tram. Because here's a video of you with your lips against plastic with smoke coming out of your nose and your face is really red and a low saxophone and soft moaning is coming through. And the moans are a woman, but you're a man. It's embarrassing because it makes you seem like you're the one that's moaning. So you throw out all your stuff and you get an actual pack of cigarettes and you light your house on fire while you're smoking something a lot less stupid than a vape. Because after that video, you at least want the firemen to come and put your house out and see you looking cool in that leather chair with your cigarette in your hand and a bunch of them everywhere else. That's the story that came with the vape I found in the trash 2 weeks ago. To be fair, I don't know if that's what actually happened, but a good story is what sells trash. And that is how I actually found the vape. It was in the trash, right next to an apple core and an empty toilet paper roll and a plastic bag filled with a bunch of other things. But it is really hard to make a vape look more stupid. I don't know if that video actually makes it worse. That's just you all the time. There is some of my creativity when let loose and not planned. I don't even know what brought on this specifically, this direction. But I hope you enjoyed the sharing of the creativity. I'm working on getting some more formal stuff out to be shared, and let me know what you think in the comments below. If you do choose to do the boot camp, also let me know. It's a lot of fun, and it will also be a struggle. You will find stuff that you don't necessarily like or that you kind of suck at, and it's a good way to just let yourself suck at something. I can't say that I enjoyed every podcast today. There was a whole week that I was like, oh my gosh, end it, it can't come fast enough. But it's important to do the exercises anyway to stretch your writerly muscles, and you'll always, as a writer who's growing, find something that's tough to do, that you don't like to do, that you should be doing anyway, for the exercise of it all. Don't just listen to it and not do it. You're not going to get anything out of it. So I hope this was fun, and see you next time. I don't know. I really don't know the best way to end these yet. I don't know.